Welcome to Toxic Superfoods Exposed. Meet Robbie Moyles, a 57-year-old athlete whose story begins with a harrowing experience.
I got really sick. I ended up getting a helicopter just under base camp.
At a crucial juncture, Robbie encounters advice that challenges her beliefs.
I went to the specialist and she said to me, "You're going to have to stop eating vegetables." I said, "I need my vegetables."
In a moment of desperation, Robbie makes a radical choice.
I was so desperate. I ate the steak raw.
Her transformation extends beyond health, reshaping her athletic identity.
Well, I'm in better shape at 57 years old than I was when I was 21.
Her journey is a testament to the strength found in seeking truth and taking control of one's health.
Hello there. My name is Robbie Moyles. Actually, everybody calls me Robbie. I'm 57 years old, and I am from Gander, Newfoundland, which is in Canada. I was vegan from in my 20s into my mid 30s. Then I was paleo for a while, and then I was this, and then I was that, and then of course, as raising a family and working and not eating properly and working all day and taking the kids to hockey at night, and just that circus of life, it catches up fairly quickly, especially when your base is oxalates. I started having IBS symptoms, which is irritable bowel syndrome, probably started around 2012, 2013. I was on Celebrex. Celebrex is an anti-inflammatory drug. So I was taking the maximum dosage of that pill since I was in my early 30s. And as I said, I'm 57. I haven't taken that pill for quite a while now, okay? But I was taking that regularly since I was in my 30s. My thyroid, I ended up with hypothyroidism. I was on medication with my thyroid for 15 years. I ended up with pituitary issues with my pituitary. I had lumps on my breast, okay? And I went to a cancer specialist. She said, well, they're, nondescript, but they'll probably lead into breast cancer probably. So you might want to get it removed. So I opted to get it removed. I got scars to prove it, right? And I'm proud. I'm not ashamed of that, right? Because now I know what the issue is. I was on a fecal transplant list, which was, with the IBS. If that didn't work, I was going to have surgery, and probably have a bag, maybe, who knows. But in 2018, I planned a trip to go to Nepal. My plan was to go to Mount Everest and to do base camp. And at this point, I'm a really good athlete by now. 2018, I go to Mount Everest, and I make it just under base camp, and I got really sick. And I ended up getting a helicopter just under base camp. And eventually I did get to Kathmandu. And when I got to Kathmandu, I had lost, in 2 weeks, I'd lost 15 pounds. Got to Kathmandu, went to hospital. And then I had enough fluids pumped into me to get back to Canada. But when I got back to Canada, I went right to the hospital, and the doctors told me that I was diagnosed with C. diff, which is pretty deadly gut bug. I had issues with gut before, but this took me to a whole new level of gut issues, man, seriously. And I'm not joking here, and I'm very candid about my experience, but I was going to the bathroom 30 times a day. Okay, I'm not kidding you, 30 times a day. And at this point, I was also getting regularly. I was getting IVs because I would get dehydrated and I wasn't absorbing nutrients. So I ended up with C. diff, and I had to get treated with vancomycin, which is a very powerful drug. The doctors and the specialists told me that I'd have to be taking this for quite some time, and I just refused to do that. But anyway, I went to this specialist, and she said to me, she said, Robbie, she says, you're going to have to stop eating vegetables. And I looked at her and I said, now listen, young lady, here she is the doctor. I'm acting so terrible here. But anyway, I said, look, I said, I'm an athlete, and I was vegan for a while, and I was this and I was that, and I've done all these weekend retreat courses on nutrition, blah blah blah. And I said, I need my vegetables. And I said, I do my juicing every day. I was doing juicing twice a day, twice a day. Okay. And so anyway, I chose not to take her advice. And for 9 months, I'd suffered even more. So my attacks with IBS were getting really short in between. Like the duration of the attacks were getting shorter in between, and the attacks were lasting longer. So I was really getting malnutrition. I discovered oxalates and the damages and the havoc and the detriment of what oxalates does to a human body over time. I met this rugby player who was a professional Canadian rugby player, and I only didn't know her for very long, just like for one summer. And she told me about oxalates, and I thought she was nuts. She was the one that introduced me to the carnivore lifestyle. She said to me, she says, I'm going out to the store and I'm buying a steak, and you're going to eat it. Just like that. And I ate the steak, and she put salt on it, and I ate it raw. I did, because I was so desperate. Okay, I was so desperate. I ate the steak raw, and within an hour, I stopped pooping. I just thought, well, this just could be a fluke or whatever. But anyway, what happened was I continued on that journey. I started experimenting with more. There's something to this. And this young woman that was only in my life for a short period of time, this rugby player, she told me a lot about oxalates. I had all the symptoms, all the issues that I had before. I never tied it to oxalates. I went down a rabbit hole, and I started finding videos, and the earlier videos with Sally and Paul Saladino. So those lectures that could go on for 6 hours, where somebody would just be like, I'd rather eat rusty nails than listen to this monotone lecture. I mean, I just absorbed it because I understood it. I understood the science behind it, and it just made complete sense. I'm like, what the hell? How did I not know this? How did I get fooled? Like, I think the biggest thing is once you start to understand how oxalates work, and then when you start to apply it, and then when you go through the rigor, when you go through the things with the socializing, after you become carnivore for a while, you stop eating plants, and then you start applying it, and then you start feeling better, and then you start feeling sick, and then you start feeling better, and then we go through all the withdrawals, and then when you go through all the social conditioning that you have to recondition and relearn, rewire and relearn, and then people are asking you questions, and then when you talk, they don't want to hear it, right? They don't want to hear it because I'm not going to give up my peanut butter. What do you mean? Peanut butter? Oh, that's so innocent, right? People don't understand the impact and the devastation and havoc that it creates in our bodies, and we just say it's okay. I was waiting for this book to come out, right? Waiting for the book to come out. 2 years into No Ox was one of the key things that brought me from an average athlete into a world class athlete at my age. Okay, so I started working out at 45 years old, 80 pounds overweight, no eyebrows because my thyroid wasn't working. I was peeing every time I do a jump or laugh or skip. I would pee, right? I would pee myself because I didn't have any bladder control. My arches, my feet were sore all the time. But I started weightlifting. I started CrossFit. And I remember falling in love with the sport of CrossFit and seeing all these impossible things that people my age and younger were doing. And I thought, I got to do that. The first 10 years, I kept trying to qualify. And each year I did get better, but I never ever qualified. But in my 10th year of training and learning and putting all the pieces together, having the right coaching, having the discipline. I went from an athlete that competed with just, to qualifying for the CrossFit Games in 2021. So I started my journey in 2019, really. It was in November 2018 is when I had stopped eating vegetables, okay? But in that timeline. So here we are now, all these years later. I'm in better shape at 57 years old than I was when I was 21. It's a true story. Honest to goodness. That what took me from this to qualify to go to the CrossFit Games was removing oxalates. I'm going to say it there's a lot of things, but I think the most important part is removing this, because by the time I got to the CrossFit Games mentally, and now just remember, I'm 57 years old, okay? I only competed one other competition in my entire life. I was prepared. And I went from, at the beginning of the season, I went from 5,578th place to 9th in the world. So in my second competition, I qualified in the final heat. That doesn't happen to too many rookies. It doesn't. Because of the foundation that I built with removing oxalates, I was able to get better care with my chiropractor. I was get better care with my physiotherapist, with my massage therapist. I was getting results now. I wasn't stuck in that same now, and I was getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I don't need to go and take the Celebrex and all the anti-inflammatories. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I do my liver, I do my meat. I do a lot of animal fat. I'm getting the top sources of fuel, and I believe it's given me the ability to do the things that I wanted to do when I was young. So I had no idea what my body was capable of doing. It's a shame, it's a real shame that if you live in this life and you got into this body and it's riddled with oxalates, because all those issues are all oxalate related. They're definitely all oxalate. That's my opinion. That was what I've learned. And once you remove that, it's like unlocking a key to freedom, if you're willing to go through the discipline it takes, because it's work. If there's anybody out there that's debating whether this is truth or not, you just take something out of your diet. Just try it for a couple of weeks and see what happens. If you can just put aside all the programming that's been going on for the last 40-50 years with nutrition and all the payouts and payoffs, and look at the real science, it's very, very clear.